Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Rajakacharya, Sadhusis with AC, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai, Namachar Haridas Thakur ki Jai, Premsagahal Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Jai, Sri Radha Krishna Gopada Shama Kunda Radha Kuda Giri Govardhan ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham ki Jai, Navadip Dham ki Jai, Ganga Jamuna Tulasi Bhakti Devi ki Jai, Ananda Kodi Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki Jai, Go Premanandi. All glories to assemble devotees, all glories to assemble devotees, all glories to assemble devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Saranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadane Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschatchadesha Tadane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading for Ram Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 10, Chapter 66, Verse 9. Mukam tad apidayagya Kanka Gridra Vatayar Vrtaha Sayishya Sehatas Tatra Bhavita Sharanam Sunam Mukam face Tat that Apidaya being covered Agya O ignorant man Kanka by herons Gridra vultures Vatai Vata birds Vritaha surrounded Sayish say you will lie Hata killed Tatra thereupon Bhavita you will become Sharanam shelter Sunam for dogs. Translation: when you lie dead, O fool, your face covered by vultures, herons, and vata birds, you will become the shelter of dogs. Purport: Pondaraka foolishly told the Supreme Lord to come to him for shelter, But here, Lord Krishna tells them, you are not my shelter, but rather you will become the shelter of dogs when they happily feast on your dead body. Srila Prabhupada vividly describes this scene as follows. Lord Krishna told Paundraka, when I shall destroy you, O foolish king, you will then have to conceal your face in disgrace. And when your head is severed from your body by my disc, you will be surrounded by meat-eating birds like vultures, hawks, and eagles. At that time, instead of becoming my shelter, as you have demanded, you will be subject to the mercy of these low-born birds. At that time, your body will be thrown to the dogs, who will eat it with great pleasure. When the Lord had thus spoken, the messenger conveyed his insulting reply to his master in its entirety. Lord Krishna then mounted his chariot and went to the vicinity of Kasi. Purport. In Krishna, Srila Prabhupada describes this incident as follows. The messenger carried the words of Lord Krishna to his master, Paundraka, who patiently heard all these insults. Without waiting any longer, Lord Sri Krishna immediately started out in his chariot to punish the rascal Paundraka, because at that time the king of Karusha, Paundraka, was living with his friend, the king of Kasi. Lord Krishna surrounded the whole city of Kasi. Upon observing Lord Krishna's preparation for battle, the mighty warrior Paundraka quickly went out of the city with 2 full military divisions. Paundraka's friend, the king of Kasi, followed behind, O king, leading the rear guard with 3 Akshaukani divisions. Lord Krishna saw that Paundraka was carrying the Lord's own insignia, such as the conch shell, disc, sword, and club, and also an imitation Saranga bow and Trivatsa mark. He wore a mock Kaustuba jewel, was decorated with a garland of forest flowers, and was dressed in upper and lower garments of fine yellow silk. His banner bore the image of Garuda, and he wore a valuable crown and gleaming shark-shaped earrings. Purport. Srila Prabhupada comments in Krishna, when the 2 kings came before Lord Krishna to oppose him, Krishna saw Paundraka face to face for the first time. Lord Hari laughed heartily when he saw how the king was dressed up in exact imitation of his own appearance, just like an actor on a stage. Purport. Srila Prabhupada describes this scene as follows. On the whole, Paundraka's dress and makeup were clearly imitation. Anyone could understand he was just like someone on a stage, playing the part of Vasudeva in false dress. When Lord Sri Krishna saw Paundraka imitating his posture and dress, he could not check his laughter, and thus he laughed with great satisfaction. Srila Jiva Goswami points out that it was a benediction from Lord Shiva that enabled Paundraka to imitate the Lord's dress and appearance, exactly a fact gleaned from the Uttarakhanda of Sri Padma Purana. The enemies of Lord Hari attacked him with tridents, clubs, bludgeons, pikes, risties, barbed darts, lances, swords, axes, and arrows. But Lord Krishna fiercely struck back at the army of Paundraka and Kasi Raj, which consisted of elephants, chariots, cavalry, and infantry. The Lord tormented his enemies with his club, sword, Sudarshan disc, and arrows, just as the fire of annihilation torments the various kinds of creatures at the end of a cosmic age. Purport. Srila Prabhupada comments as follows in Krishna. The soldiers on the side of King Paundraka began to shower their weapons upon Krishna. The weapons, including various kinds of trident, club, poles, lances, swords, daggers, and arrows, came flying in waves, and Krishna counteracted them. He smashed not only the weapons, but also the soldiers and assistants of Paundraka. Just as during the dissolution of this universe, the fire of devastation burns everything to ashes, the elephants, chariots, horses, and infantry belonging to the opposite party were scattered by the weapons of Krishna. The battlefield, strewn with the dismembered chariots, horses, elephants, humans, mules, and camels that had been cut to pieces by the Lord's disc weapon, shone like the gruesome playground of Lord Bhutapati, giving pleasure to the wise. Purport: Srila Prabhupada describes the scene as follows. Although the devastated battlefield appeared like the dancing place of Lord Shiva at the time of dissolution of the world, the warriors who were on the side of Krishna were very much encouraged by seeing this, and they fought with greater strength. Lord Krishna then addressed Pondraka: "My dear Pondraka, the very weapons you spoke of through your messenger I now release upon you." Purport: Srila Prabhupada writes as follows in Krishna. At this time, Lord Krishna told Pondraka, "Pondraka, you requested me to give up the symbols of Lord Vishnu, specifically my disc. Now, I will give it up to you. Be careful. You falsely declare yourself to be Vasudeva, imitating myself. Therefore, no one is a greater fool than you." From the statement of Krishna's, it's clear that any rascal who advertises himself as God is the greatest fool in human society. "O fool, now I shall make you renounce my name, which you have falsely assumed, and I will certainly take shelter of you if I do not wish to fight you." Purport: The Prabhupada writes as follows. "Now, Pondraka, I shall force you to give up this false representation. You wanted me to surrender unto you. Now this is your opportunity. We shall fight, and if I am defeated and you become victorious, I shall certainly surrender unto you." Having thus derided Pondraka, Lord Krishna destroyed his chariot with his sharp arrows. The Lord then cut off his head with the Sudarshan disc, just as Lord Indra lops off a mountain peak with his thunderbolt weapon. With his arrows, Lord Krishna similarly severed Kasi Raja's head from his body, sending it flying into Kasi city like a lotus flower thrown by the wind. Purport: the Vishnu Chakravarti explains why Krishna threw Kasi Raja's head into the city. As he went off to battle, the king of Kasi had promised the citizens, "My dear residents of Kasi, today I will bring the enemy's head into the midst of the city. Have no doubt of this." The king's sinful queens had also boasted to their maids-in-waiting, "Today our master will certainly bring the head of the Lord of Dwarka." Therefore the Supreme Lord threw the king's head into the city to astonish the inhabitants. Having thus killed envious Pondraka and his ally, Lord Krishna returned to Dwarka. As he entered the city, the Siddhas of heaven chanted his immortal nectarian glories. By constantly meditating upon the Supreme Lord, Pondraka shattered all his material bonds. Indeed, by imitating Lord Krishna's appearance, O king, he ultimately became Krishna conscious. Purport: Srila Prabhupada writes as follows in Krishna. As far as Pondraka was concerned, somehow or other he was always thinking of Vasudeva by falsely dressing himself in that way. And therefore, Pondraka achieved Sarupya, one of the 5 kinds of liberation, and was thus promoted to the Vaikuntha planets, where the devotees have the same bodily features as Vishnu with 4 hands holding the 4 symbols. Factually, his meditation was concentrated on the Vishnu form, but because he thought himself to be Lord Vishnu, he was offensive. After being killed by Krishna, however, that offense was also mitigated. Thus he was given Sarupya liberation, and he attained the same form as the Lord. So, here we see the end of Pondraka. He made a challenge to the Lord and said the Lord should surrender to him. And then when the battle began, then Lord Krishna announced that I'll surrender to you if you defeat me in battle. And ultimately, Pondraka was killed. And as explained here in this last verse, he did not get a terrible destination in spite of being an aparadi and fighting with the Lord and insulting the Lord. Generally, if one offends the Lord, one's destination is not good. One may go to hell or whatever. However, we find in the Nectar Devotion in the southern section where the 64 qualities of Krishna are enumerated. Among the 60 qualities of Vishnu, the 5 extra over Shiva, one of the qualities is that when the Vishnu kills an enemy, the enemy gets an auspicious destination. So all forms of the Lord, when they kill a demon, the demon gets benefit. So when Varaha kills Hiranyaksha, then he gets good benefit. Or when Nrsimhadev kills Hiranyakasipu, he gets good benefit. When Rama kills Ravana, he gets benefit. So they don't go to hell. So that's a particular quality of the Supreme Lord in killing demons. One reason, of course, is to show that the Lord does not hate the demon. He has no animosity towards that demon, though he fights with him. He has no hatred, so he's not punishing him with anger or anything like that. So in this way, the Lord is quite compassionate. But of course, he does kill the person, and that's some, say, punishment for his particular aparad or sin. But he doesn't give him any hellish place and no misery after life. He gets some more enjoyment, or whatever. So this is a quality of Vishnu. So Krishna also has that quality. Of course, he has 4 extra qualities of sweetness, like Madhurya Rupa, Madhurya Venu, etc. But he also has this quality of giving benefit to a demon when he kills him. However, Krishna does something much more remarkable when he kills a demon. So not only he gets a good destination, but he may get liberation, like Sayuja, or he may even get Sarupya. So this is the particular feature of Krishna that distinguishes him from Vishnu. Of course, they both give good benedictions to demons when they kill them, but Krishna may liberate the demon or give him a place in the spiritual world with a spiritual body. So that is the particular outstanding feature of Krishna. And we see this in killing Shishupala, and here in killing this Paundraka. The reason is, of course, we can say, well, Krishna is very merciful. But it is also pointed out in Scripture, the real reason is not so much the mercy, which is also there, but the attractive nature of Krishna, which makes even the demons concentrate on him and become absorbed in him because he's so attractive. So they think of him with great absorption and intensity because of his attractive features. But it is not called bhakti because it's a hatred. So the definition of bhakti is anukulyena krishnanusilanam, to cultivate a relationship with Krishna which is favorable, that is, with affection. So if we cultivate a relationship with Krishna which is hatred, then that's not called bhakti. It's unfavorable. It's not anukulya, it's pratikulya. So nevertheless, they're cultivating a relationship, but it's a hatred relationship. So there's a relationship cultivated, but a negative relationship. So that's not called bhakti at all. So in most cases, it is not beneficial for any jiva to do that. However, when the object of hatred is Krishna and the demon fights with Krishna, then we get a good result, a very good result from that. Of course, we can say, well, then everyone should become a demon and fight with Krishna, and then we all get Sarupya in the spiritual world. But even though the demon does get some benefit like this, the devotee is not interested in that, because the devotee gets something more than that. The demon, through pratikulya bhava, may get liberation or sarupya. The devotee, by anukulya relationship, must get something much more than that. So of course he's liberated from the material world, he gets a body in the spiritual world also, but he gets more than that. Right? So So the devotee actually does not desire liberation. He does not desire sarupya, a body. He does not desire even the planet of the Lord, or samipya, or anything, or sharshti powers like the Lord. So the desire of the devotee is completely different. He only wants to serve the Lord in affection. And this is what the Lord gives him. This is not the desire of the demon. The demon hates the Lord. He's not desiring anything, even sarupya or whatever. He doesn't desire anything. He hates the Lord. The devotee desires only service. And this is the great reward that the Lord gives the devotee in the spiritual world. And that produces prema and ananda. So though the demon seems to get the same destination, that is, he may get a place in Vaikuntha with a form, a spiritual form, it is actually not the same goal that the devotee gets. The devotee gets prema with ananda, and the demon does not get that. He certainly gets something, because you cannot be in the spiritual world with demonic mentality, etc. We have to have some sort of favorability to the Lord. So yes, the demons are cleansed of their impurities, their anarthas, etc., as explained here by Prabhupada in the purport. He was his anarthas were all dissipated by contact with the Supreme Lord. His offense was destroyed, etc. So in other words, his negative mentality, his offensive mentality, his hatred, etc., all ultimately gone. Nobody in the spiritual world can have hatred of the Lord or negative attitudes. So he's favorable to the Lord. So that's also a type of bhakti, or we can even say prema or whatever, but it's nothing in comparison to what the devotee has in the spiritual world. So within the spiritual world, there is various amounts of bliss. So those at the bottom are persons like the demons who get bodies in the spiritual world. Yes, they have some relationship with the Lord and they got sarupya or whatever, but nothing like the relationship that the devotee attains in the spiritual world, where he is striving to please the Lord and serve the Lord at all times. So though the demons get some benediction like that looks very nice, it is nothing compared to what the devotee gets. So if the demon only gets liberation, of course, the devotee never wants that. So that's not considered to be beneficial at all. Now, liberation is the desired goal of the yogis and the jnanis, and they will strive for lifetimes to get that goal. And Krishna, simply by killing the demon, can give him that goal. So that this indicates that type of liberation is not something so beneficial, because when Krishna kills a demon, that's what they get. So that is nothing. But then Krishna's special benediction on some of the demons, not all the demons, but some of them, is that they get higher benediction. That is, they go to the spiritual world with a spiritual body, and so they attain salokya and sarupya. Something remarkable and very surprising. So this is what happened to Aghasura also when killed by Krishna. First the soul came out of his body, merged into Krishna, and then he got sarupya later on. So this was very astonishing. Of course, the devatas and others were astonished because the demon merged into Krishna, his soul. He got sarupya or sayuja. So even that is astonishing for the devatas and the yogis and the jnanis. How can a demon get sayuja? How can he get liberation like this? The Lord does that. But even more surprising is when he gives sarupya in Vaikuntha. More surprising. So this is a quality that Krishna has in relation to killing demons, that they get liberation or they go to the spiritual world with sarupya. So, though spiritual world and Sarupya for the devotees seem okay, very nice, at the same time Bhagavatam says actually the devotee is not interested in Sarupya, Sayujya, Salokya, Sarsti, Samipya, etc. 5 types of liberation. The devotee doesn't even want them if there is no service to the Supreme Lord. And if there's service to the Supreme Lord, he doesn't really need those things also. If the Lord gives them, fine. If he doesn't give them, the Lord does not regret it. He simply wants to serve the Lord eternally. So therefore the devotee is in a higher position. So one should not become discouraged on hearing these stories how Krishna kills a demon and liberates him or puts him in the spiritual world. The devotee gets much more than that. These stories are told sometimes not to glorify demons, but to show the special nature of Krishna, more attractive, more merciful than anybody else, of whatever qualities the Lord has. Krishna has them in the most remarkable way. So he's more merciful, he's more attractive, etc. And therefore he will give liberation or a place in the spiritual world. But the other purpose is to show that, in one sense, going to the spiritual world and getting spiritual world is not too great after all. Because a demon can get that. So a devotee must get much more than that. That's the idea. The devotee, in other words, is not interested in those types of liberation, but in serving the Lord. And the result is much greater. Of course, he gets liberation, he gets Sarupya, Samipya, etc., but he gets something much more than that. And that is his service to the Lord and the bliss that results from that service. That is how the devotee understands these stories about Krishna killing demons and giving them liberation or whatever, or a place in the spiritual world. So specifically, in this case, Pondraka not only concentrated on the Lord, he imitated him completely by dressing up like him, putting on the Kaustubha jewel and having a Srivatsa and a crown and a forest garland and same colored dhoti and having 4 arms and holding a shankha and a chakra, etc. Imitating exactly. So he was very absorbed in the form of the Supreme Lord. But, of course, it was not favorable. He was taking the position of the Supreme Lord. Not that he was meditating on the Supreme Lord and saying, I'm your servant and you're very wonderful. Rather, he was taking away the position of the Supreme Lord in his meditation on the Lord. But because of this absorption in the Lord and his paraphernalia and his form, etc., and then the Lord gave him this benediction of getting a 4-arm form in the spiritual world. So we see in the case of Putana also. Putana was a demon, but she dressed up like a gopi. And she was very attractive, and all the elder gopis, when they saw her, they said, she must be Lakshmi. And then when she came into the room, they didn't oppose her. And when she picked up Krishna, they also didn't object. And then she tried to feed Krishna, and then she tried to poison him. And, of course, Krishna killed her. But then Krishna also gave her benediction. And she went to the spiritual world also and got a form, a female form, as a nurse in the spiritual world. So she didn't become a mother of Krishna or anything, but she became a nurse, so a little bit indirect relationship, something like a mother. So there is a trace of Vatsalya there, but not as great as a real parent. All right? And why did Krishna do this? So his excuse was, well, she dressed up like a gopi. So that was, Krishna was attracted to the gopis, so she's a cowherd. So because of that act, even though it was done out of malice to disguise her demoniac form, Krishna had mercy on that aspect of her. It's at least a cowherd form. So, and then he became very compassionate, and then he gave her a form in the spiritual world. But that relationship again is not as satisfactory as the relationship that a devotee develops through his constant cultivation of favorable service. Through favorable service, and then one ends up with intense prema and full development of rasa. So that is the difference here between the form that the demon gets in the spiritual world and that which a devotee gets.
Which is 6 characteristics, moksha, that comes at the stage of bhava bhakti. Then as a sadhana, sadhaka, how is it that he may not aspire for moksha?
How is it? He will not?
A devotee, only when...
You mean before that?
Before that.
Oh, well, it's specifically mentioned in bhava stage, though, obviously, even in sadhana, and all in the Bhagavatam, it talks about liberation uselessly. So we're aware of it in sadhana stage, and we're taught that we don't strive for liberation or even sarupya, sarsti, etc., but we only want service. So definitely we're aware of that in sadhana bhakti as part of pure bhakti. However, in bhava stage, one has a realization of the Lord. And as well, in one sense, ahankara and anarthas, everything and karmas are all destroyed. So one is liberated technically from bondage of the material world. Nevertheless, the devotee is not interested in simply freedom from material bondage because he sees the Lord. So he understands that Supreme Lord is much greater than just darshan of the Supreme Lord once even in a lifetime is much greater than liberation or anything. So it becomes a realization at that stage. This moksha is useless. But of course, before that we know about it, but it becomes a realization in the bhava stage.
And Maharaj, it is said that Maharaj, he practiced jnana vishwamitra.
Yeah.
And that jnana that he was telling he did was vairagya. Why isn't it that Pratikulya Sivacana, the vairagya that he practiced?
Of course, this is in Brihad Bhagavatamrita where it talks about the different types of devotees. Of course, it's also explained that his jnana mrisa bhakti was not real jnana in the sense of trying to merge into Vishnu because he actually had bhava and he saw the Lord in front of him. So in that sense, it wasn't jnana mrisa bhakti. But definitely there was awe and reverence in that bhakti. So that jnana there does not mean so much impersonal jnana. But his approach to the Lord was formal with cultivating, I can say, bhakti knowledge, etc. And we can say with reverence as well. And then because of his tapasya, this also kind of influenced him to see the Lord as, all-powerful, etc. So more like Aishvarya bhakti rather than, raga bhakti or something like that. So his realization was the greatness of the Lord rather than anything else. So not jnana mrisa bhakti in the negative sense.
Wasn't Ambarish Maharaj also doing something like that?
Well, it's not mentioned. He didn't do austerities or anything like that, and he was more interested in serving the Lord. So it's described how he would clean the temple or do this, arrange all these services, and he was quite absorbed in worshiping the Lord or the deity of the Lord. So less emphasis upon austerities or cultivation of knowledge or whatever.